brought it this week in terms of the spell variant and be able to go through. And Tincho says, I want no part of that.
Yeah, it's got good matchups against a few of his decks. Paladin notably, because it can pick apart early board states, especially with devolving missiles. Excuse me. Also, Token Druid, I think, is a pretty good matchup for the mage because, again, you have combustions, root orbs, devolving missiles, brain freeze, just to be able to clean up a lot of the early board states. So I agree with the ban from Tincho just because it just so happens that mage is a deck that can capitalize on it. Now, No Hands will keep the Wand Maker. You're not really looking for much in the mulligan as the weapon rogue. If you have a weapon in that starting mulligan, things can change, but you're pretty much just looking for Wand Maker and a weapon. That's it. It's a pretty simple mulligan strategy. Sometimes you can keep Deadly Poison just because it's pretty much the best poison, knowing that you will pick up a weapon at some point, but other than that, pretty straightforward. Teacher's got a little bit more difficult one on his hands, but I think Crab Rider, Hand of a Doll is a good start, especially on the coin, and find Sword of the Fallen to go along with it, so not too bad.
Job's done.
Yep, pretty good start indeed. Or at least not bad, as you have described it. I mean, we've seen what this Crab Rider can do. It was NoHandsGamer yesterday who was playing an early Crab Rider and completely ran over his opponent, and now perhaps it's just another twist of irony that we see here in Hearthstone, where it's just one of the people who have been doing that kind of hurt gets the hurt delivered right back, and maybe start to see like why this Paladin deck for a long time, right after the expansion release, was the deck to beat. I mean, the stats still back it up as still being one of the top classes in the meta game right now. This kind of early opening, how do you even deal with it from No Hands?
You don't. You get brain freeze from Wand Maker. That's it. It's a pretty difficult card to deal with unless he's got weapon on 3 and you want to attack it a couple times. He's going to be taking some damage. That's for sure. He's just got to hope that there's nothing to back this Crab Rider up, and that this Wand Maker damage will actually stick. But he just got the Hand of a Doll, which will keep this Crab Rider protected. And then after that, it doesn't stop. Sword of the Fallen, Righteous Protector to protect it, and he's looking at potential for a pretty quick victory.
Yeah, this one might be a quick one, and it's just kind of been quick games for the first 4 games that we've seen today. It's not over quite yet, even if it looks like it's right now overwhelmingly slanted towards Tincho in the early game. No Hands picks up some stuff that's actually pretty good. These are 3 of the stronger hero powers to be able to get for free. The issue is that life tap, I don't think he necessarily wants to put himself in a situation where his life total is going to be in jeopardy, and Tincho can maybe just kill him from hand with the combination of, buffing his minions plus weapons. Demon Hunter's ability is pretty reasonable just to squeeze out additional tempo, and now No Hands is thinking about either a series of cards that he could draw off the secret passage, and he finds the prize plunderer. That's huge. Now he can kill it. Wow, really well done and mapped out here from NoHandsGamer. That was an impressive play to be able to spot the exact out, to be able to kill off this Crab Rider.
Yeah, I was thinking about what he's looking for, but obviously, because he picked the 1 damage hero power, it's probably the weakest hero power, like in a vacuum among those 3, because it's just less efficient, right? It's 1 damage that you have to use your face for, as opposed to 2 damage or draw a card. But knowing that he needed exactly 5 and needed to have the opportunity to pick up Secret Plunderer to be able to kill that Crab Rider, that was good. Now he's not out of the woods yet, right? His hand is not that great. Could be good if he picks up a weapon, a self-sharpening sword, or the Swine Tusk Shank off the top, just to be able to start getting that weapon buff and get that cutting class a little bit cheaper. But this is a good start. And now Tincho, kind of back to the drawing board. I think Sword of the Fallen has a lot of merit here, just to start pulling secrets from your deck, so you're not drawing those off the top. It's a little bit less power developed on board, since he'd just be playing a Righteous Protector to go along with it. I guess just going for Crab Rider Righteous Protector to try and pretty much do the same thing for NoHandsGamer, because he saw how difficult it was for him to deal with the first one, also makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, and No Hands spent so much resources to be able to do something like that. So the logic checks out here for Tincho. Righteous Protector's so hard to deal with. And as it turns out, No Hands just going to go ahead and do a very Demon Hunter-like play, which is attack first, weapon after, just to optimize the amount of damage instead of crashing into Divine Shield. He's just going to go ahead and capitalize. Very good ordering. Making sure to try and maximize the pressure. And No Hands is in trouble. We talked about exactly this kind of position where you are going to struggle against all these small little weenies, right? It's just so hard to get past them. Even attack.
You're going to have to deal with it eventually, but if you attack with it, if the Avenge goes on the Crab Rider, he could just be dead. Conviction is a possibility.
Oh,
could he be dead anyway if Conviction goes on the 2 right minions? 8, 15. Yep, that's exact lethal. Cool. Right? With the Sword of the Fallen Swing. Oh my gosh.
Wow, turn 5 victory again for the Paladin. I'm sensing a common theme. And, you know, like we said, No Hands was the one delivering that kind of punish yesterday to close out the broadcast, and a little chuckle with a little bit of a, I guess he, you know, just a little bit of a cringe too. Just like, oh man, that's a lot of damage, and like, yikes coming out.
Yeah.
I'm just dead. And Tincho just like, yeah, you're dead. Like, there's nothing much that you can do to stop it if you're the weapon rogue, and you have to get past the 1/1. That Righteous Protector didn't die, and it just goes to show you how much board aggression comes out of that Paladin very quickly.
Yeah, that was a for sure a yikes game for No Hands. Found the early game that he needed to in order to deal with the Crab Rider with a creative play, and honestly a really great play to start things off. But Secret Paladin is just one of those decks. If they have the start and you don't have meaningful ways to defend yourself, which Weapon Rogue definitely doesn't have, then you're going to fall prey to it as early as turn 5, which is what it happened to be in this game. So I don't think he's too worried about that matchup specifically, just because I think the Secret Rogue, or the Secret Paladin, excuse me, probably was going to take a win against most of his decks. It's just, I'm sure he was hoping that he was going to get a little bit better of a chance in the game and have some agency, but alas, he did not. Now we're going to go into a Token Druid mirror match, I believe. You're taking a look at Tincho's. He kind of went for a little bit of a halfway point, 1 Guidance, 1 Pride's Fury, which are the 2 cards that have been the most interchangeable in at least America's Grandmasters as far as lists go. But everything else, standard Token Druid stuff.
Very standard and just good cards to play, but that's usually with the caveat that you get the ability and time to do that. You know, we've been seeing Druid struggle a lot, actually. Funny enough, another deck that might let you do that is Druid, because they're busy building up their hands, and they want to go for, you know, the card vomit, right? Which is just like, you have your 9 cards, now watch me play 8 of them right now, and oh wait, actually, this 9th one is the finisher card next turn if you don't deal with this. And so we'll see who gets the ability to get ahead. And, you know, Token Druid mirrors have also been some of the most complicated board aggression decks mirrors that we've seen in quite some time. I think back of DreamHack, back when Spreading Plague was a card in the metagame, and people would play like these really wacky boards back and forth, and neither player would die. It'd be almost deadlocked, despite it being a matchup that you want to go really fast in. Those are some interesting times, and I think this matchup has evolved over the years.
That was my least favorite mirror matchup on the planet in like the history of Hearthstone, except for Control Bomb Warrior mirrors and Specialist. But that's probably just because we cast so many of them that I got sick of it. There is an oversimplified way to explain this matchup, and that's every turn take away as much power from your opponent as possible and put as much power on your board as possible. but even then, it's kind of hard to boil it down to that because a lot of times it can be better to just go for a big burst of power onto the board if you're in a situation where neither player really has those crazy openings. And we are in a situation where neither player has crazy openings. No gibberling starts, nothing like that. Though Tincho's got the beginnings of one because he has the initiative with his Thorngrowth Sentries being played on the board, and he has the Lightning Bloom to be able to go for a power turn quite early. Like he could go for Lightning Bloom Arbor up as early as next turn, which could end up snowballing the game in his favor, depending on the next few draws from No Hands and how he decides to play it.
Thorngrowth Sentries right back. Yeah, I like the hold here. Initiative is a really powerful thing with so much fewer tools for those comebacks in the meta that we described with the spreading plague. Now Tincho going for the Arbor up, and just like that, NoHandsGamer is on the defensive for pretty much the rest of the game here. And what do you do in response? Is it Glowfly Swarm and hope for the best here?
It would only be 4.
Yeah, the Thorn, but the second Thorngrowth is pretty bad. Like, what do you just get your opponent some more trades and they might get stronger. And remember that Tincho played his Lightning Bloom, so he is overloaded for 2 crystals, meaning that his weakest point is going to be next turn. So if you play a weak card, you're giving your opponent the ability to, they pretty much bypass the downside of their previous turn. And so I think it has to be the play from No Hands to just stay competitive in this matchup.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. There's nothing that he can really do. And now, if Tincho gets Power of the Wild here, nope, didn't hit it. Yeah, Fungal Forge is still good to reload. I imagine next turn is pretty much going to be Solar Force. He has to trade down here because I don't think he can risk Pride's Fury on the next turn. So I think he needs to trade over these 2/2s. Again, take as much power off the board from your opponent as possible. This matchup is pretty much all in on board presence. And so NoHandsGamer has fought back. He can go Thorngrowth Sentries, Adorable Infestation, or I guess just Thorngrowth Sentries Hero Power is probably better. Keeps additional spell in hand for Glowfly Swarm and actually takes 4 power off board.
I like it. I like it because you already saw your opponent play Arbor up, so the likely card they're going to play on 5, just by sheer probability, is Glowfly Swarm. So you know that if your opponent does, yeah, he's ahead on board again, and you kind of reset by playing your Glowfly Swarm right back. But you should know that at least this the Sentry is likely to trade into your opponent's Treant. Whoa. I'm looking at the Solar Flare, and I'm just thinking about how next turn from Tincho can be really sick, depending on what he picks up. So he's going to go ahead and stop and think real quick to see if there's any play besides just jamming the Glowfly Swarm immediately, which I like. It seems like a fairly obvious Glowfly Swarm turn, but it's always good to just pause and see if there's anything else that you're not thinking about.
Yeah, that was pretty much the one window for No Hands to try and take initiative. If Tincho has a little bit of a dead turn, has to Fungal Fortunes to draw cards, and can't really develop much on the board, he gets to have priority on the Glowfly Swarm. Unfortunately, Tincho had his own, and having the initiative on board in this matchup is so crucial because it means you get to buff your minions and then take value trades, and Tincho gets to do exactly that. Gets to go just solve the forest, pretty much. Trade over everything, still have a board, and once again have initiative. And solve the forest plus Power of the Wild, or even Solar Eclipse Power of the Wild. Both very solid. Either way, he's going to trade down the board. It's just what he wants to do first. If you sold the forest now, you get to double Solar Eclipse Power of the Wild next, or Solar Eclipse Power of the Wild next turn, which still leaves you with the same amount of power on board. Then if you had gone Solar Eclipse Power of the Wild this turn and just traded over. Is there one that's more flexible?
Would you ever just play Soul of the Forest and Power of the Wild, then Solar Eclipse next turn with Fungal Fortunes? Just like reload your hand, keep up the pressure, and like still build up a good board.
Yeah, no, that's a good point.
I think I like that the most because what ends up happening is he gets actually the best of both worlds. One, he's improving his board, getting all the trades that he wants. And then two, let's say something absolutely disastrous happens. No Hands has like the complete utter nuts, fills up a board just as competitive, and Tincho is forced to trade down. He still can get even further ahead with his Solar Eclipse plus Fungal Fortunes and then continue to reload. So I think I like that, and that's probably what Tincho is considering as well, given that he set up the exact scenario, and his board's still very threatening from here.
It's also the only play that gives him outs for lethal, right? Because he wouldn't have enough for lethal if he had played Solar Eclipse, but he has Pride's Fury, second Power of the Wild, and second Arbor up as lethal outs in the situation, in the event that he holds on to Solar Eclipse, which he did. So, no one does what he can. He does have his own Solar Eclipse Arbor up next turn. So if Tincho... does he have to fully trade down here? That feels so bad.
I don't think he has to. He can actually draw his cards first because he still has the Lightning Bloom, so he could Solar Eclipse, Fungal Fortunes. Then if he picks up another good card to play... I'm thinking that like his Pride's Fury. Then he has the ability to just play that immediately. Okay, and of course, Weaving and Lunar Eclipse as well, since the next card he has is free. Or, sorry, 2 mana less. I was thinking that he was going to play Solar Eclipse, so essentially free. And so Tincho digs, finds... not the cards he's looking for immediately, but finds a Pride's Fury, which is what we're talking about, and I like that right here. I like it. And I think that, he's going to go ahead and play the Thorngrove Sentries. That also works too. I think anything that just helps him build up the board, because I was pretty much tunneled on that Pride's Fury. But this is like just as effective, and he builds an even wider board, which makes Pride's Fury even better. So again, Tincho's constantly thinking, what's a good board now? That's not necessarily the best, but also my power curve is very consistent turn after turn. I like it. Very good forward thinking, and NoHandsGamer, it just feels like he's locked out right now. Good board though.
Yeah, just not enough. And that's definitely lethal. Plus 3
Super
attack
lethal.
on every minion on the board. Has 8, 9, 12 damage already on board. And that's plus 18. That's 30. All right, 30 damage on the board. Quite insane. And, I mean, again, that matchup pretty much comes down to initiative. Tincho played the first minions and then never gave up the board after that. That's how insane the initiative is in the Token Druid Mirror matchup. Obviously, there's opportunities where one player needs to draw cards or misses a buff when they need it or misses development when they need it. But Tincho's firing on all cylinders, and when both players have those equal draws, the player that gets on board first is usually the player that's going to win a lot of the time, because Druid just doesn't have those comeback mechanics. They don't even have really any discovers now with the current card pool that lets them come back. They don't have the Starfalls or the swipes that they can discover from Nature Studies or Guidance. The removal they have is pretty much limited to Lunar Eclipse, and it's not that strong of removal. It lets you do some power turns, but in the Mirror matchup, unless you're playing it early game just to try and take initiative back for yourself, not going to be enough.
Yeah, and we talk about how Tincho was looking forward. He played with the lead beautifully and just really capitalized on what makes this matchup hurt for No Hands' side, right? Like, No Hands understands what it's like to be on the defensive end. You can see him like kind of role playing, taking the damage himself instead of Malfurion. Always love to see that. But just kind of say it's like that's just textbook execution of what to do with a lead in a mirror like that. And now we go into Tincho's final deck, the Otk Demon Hunter, a deck that he needed every chance that he could get yesterday, because it was a deck that was almost losing 3 times against Luna. And so Tincho, I mean, he's been playing well, very clean first 2 games, although granted it's been pretty easy so far. This is not necessarily as easy. This is probably the hardest deck that a lot of people, I think people would agree that Otk Demon Hunter might be the most complicated deck currently in the meta.
Yeah, also when played right is one of the strongest decks in the current meta. Actually, it was the strongest deck, one of the strongest decks in the previous meta. Because it didn't really lose anything. In fact, it gained more than it lost with cards like Talented Arcanist to be able to come in and give you redundancy with your combo, and also cards that let you clear boards in the early game, which was, I think, the biggest downfall of the deck in its previous iteration before the rotation, was that you were much more limited in how you could spend your combo pieces and still be able to deal damage. Now, you can throw away Moargs, Arcanist, Fellscream Blast, and still be able to deal 30 plus damage because of how much redundancy you have in the deck. So, NoHands is going to be playing the Aggro Paladin as the first challenger against the Otk Demon Hunter, and I think this is probably one of the best matchups just because the boards can get really awkward for Demon Hunter to clear. So, I like the choice.
I agree. I think that is probably going to be his best chance to start things. And if it doesn't, I mean, series is over anyways. And I think one thing that we can appreciate too, just as a side note, is that NoHandsGamer, as much as people think about the decks and his background, right, of how inspiring it is, the fact that he plays with no hands, just uses his eye tracker and able to find ways, other alternatives to play Hearthstone. I think people focus so much on that. The guy just loves playing card games. The guy just loves Hearthstone. He's having fun and just kind of embracing the fact that there's a lot of wacky stuff that happens from time to time, but it doesn't really tilt him, I feel like. I feel like that's such a superpower currently, because there's other players who have also had crazy consistency, but it feels like they take those kind of outcomes personally at times. And I love the demeanor that No Hands brings. Not to mention that he's dressed really sharp. Always love to see that too.
Yep.
One Blazer lover to another. I dig it.
Spruce up the broadcast a little bit.
Whoa. Sprucing it up.
I mean, in that situation,
spicy.
You just want more power on the board. So maybe not the best, but Babbling Book can offer some interesting choices. It's hard to think of a mage spell that's going to be super impactful in this matchup specifically. Maybe outside of like Mask of Cthulhu. Just because, the Demon Hunter doesn't usually have a board, and that could sometimes be the over-the-top burst that you need. But NoHands faced with an interesting decision now. You can decide to go wider on the board with Babbling Book and Night of Anointment, or decide to just play the Dragon Tamer here. And I think I'd like that just because still pulls a card out of his deck, just like Night of Anointment or Hand of Vidal. Diversifies his assets, his minion assets, to play around some removal, right? Plays around Immolation Order, plays around Chaos Strike. He's going to have a minion on the board regardless of what Tincho decides to do, unless he wants to Immolation Aura and then expend the coin to Hero Power, which is a pretty expensive turn, and then has the follow-up with card draw and the weaker minions on the backside.
All right, well, let's see it. Finds the Underlight Angling Rod. Wow, so one of the things I've kind of really come to discover about this kind of deck from Paladin is just that the early game foundation pretty much sets you up for success for the rest of the game, which is not a surprise. Every aggressive deck is like this, especially low curve. But just the sheer amount of variations available to NoHandsGamer's play is actually kind of staggering, right? Like, he could obviously develop the secret, which is the first thing I was thinking about. And then I was like thinking about the merits of swinging with the Underlight Angling Rod, because that ends up giving him the ability to start setting up more powerful plays from the future, because you don't want to just always think about the board in that situation. Think about the resource and the power curve, right? Like what Tincho was doing previously, which is, this is the best turn I can do, but have a smooth ramp up of pressure and really make Tincho feel a lot of heat. So, that was a surprisingly tricky turn, just in terms of like what No Hands is thinking. And he went taller with the minion, which I like, because fundamentally that's a lot harder for Tincho to remove, right? He has to combo 2 to 3 cards in order to kill this 4/5 cleanly. And that's also assuming that Tincho has the card and it's in the right position with things like I-Beam.
Maybe.
Yeah, kind of going all in on that 1 minion makes the removal difficult, especially with just 3 mana dealing with a 4/5. Can be quite tough. And Tincho just needs to decide what the game plan is. He's playing the Eldrazi Warblades from the left side, trying to get closer to being able to play Spectral Sight, Outcast, but that does pigeonhole him into playing the Raging Fell Screamer at some point. And it's hard for me to think of a great opportunity to do that with a 4/5 hitting you turn after turn. We'll see how it works out next turn, what he ends up picking up. Does have Immolation or Chaos Strike, has some tools to be able to deal with stuff, but could still be scary. Now No Hands, again, just needs to try and find a way to... Primordial Studies. Could be interesting to try and ramp up the pressure, and I think Sword of the Fallen, getting some secrets out of the deck, even though it's not pushing damage right now, I always like to get that out as quick as possible just because you don't want to be drawing secrets off the top. Solid Ordering as well, just to make sure that less likely to pull Avenge from the deck, but alas, pulls it anyway.
It happens, but overall, he's still in a pretty decent spot. Until Tincho has proven that he can deal with this board state, he should continue just to ramp up its power. Oh, draws the other secret. Okay. Does that mean that this attack from the Sword of the Fallen is not do anything? Yeah, I think he still has one more.
Well, he has an Oh My Yogg in the deck, so he can pull out the last Oh My Yogg.
Right.
Which would make this one not castable, but everything else that he's going to do this turn, not that powerful. I think Primordial Studies and then finding like Steward of Scrolls would be pretty powerful. The Discover a Spell, it's probably the most powerful spell damage minion that he can take up his turn with, and that can be used in Paladin.
Right. Mana expenditure. And there it is, the Steward of Scrolls. Good call, TJ. Now, the question is that the pick, right? Because he could also, for example, pick Cobalt Geomancer and then squeeze in a setup for the Underlight Angling Rod, just to be more mana efficient with what he can squeeze out. Okay, so this is an interesting question. Is it time to pick and it looks like it is. No Hands says, hey, I have a whiteboard. You have not demonstrated the ability to clear off these minions that are mid-sized. I'm also attacking with another secret that Oh My Yogg will disrupt. There's a large chance that my board survives with a few minions on it. Maybe it's time to pull a trigger on it, and he does agree. I haven't really seen too many use cases for this card, but it looks like No Hands is basically like returning the token Druid favors. Like, well, I'm just going to play my own Pride's Fury if you're going to do that to me.
I know there's a way.
So it is Avenge, Oh My Yogg, and Noble Sack.
Right.
Oh no, sorry. No, it's not Avenge. He pulled the Avenge from the only Avenge he plays from his deck. He actually plays double Noble Sack. It's Galloping Savior and Oh My Yogg that's left. Yeah, he drew the Avenge.
So he knows.
Yep.
Tincho's aware, which means that he has to find a way, if possible, to deal with this board state and try not to activate the Galloping Savior, which requires him to play only 2 cards. If he does do that, does he have the ability for full clear? He's got the Immolation R. I see it's the second card from the left. That deals with the 1/1s. Does not deal with both of the 4-attack minions, though. Tincho sees the Oh My Yogg, which transforms it to Cold Blood. Uh-oh. Oh no!
Is this the invigorating sermon turn?
Yeah, I think he's 1 off lethal, 1 mana off lethal.
Well, you'd first day of school first, because it buffs It buffs hand, deck, and battlefield. It just buffs everything. Double that, partner. Man, he should have picked Consecration.
Yeah, he had lethal with Consecration, right? No, he lost his Suitor Scrolls. He lost his Suitor Scrolls,
Yeah.
Oh,
that would have been, yeah, I think you invigorating sermon and just load up. So Tincho though he effectively needs a Moarg right now to go Moarg plus Immolation, and even then there's a lethal setup. Plays both secrets as well. I like this maximum disruption, and has a lethal setup with the underlay angling rod. So Tincho needs to heal and clear the board this turn through double secrets or triple secrets. Galloping Savior too. He has to play around Galloping Savior. Shadow Step, cool. No targets.
No targets.
You should be able to Shadow Step your opponent's minions just to steal them. 0 mana, just remove a minion from your opponent's board and put it in your hand, and it costs 2 less.
Maybe.
That sounds entirely too balanced, TJ. Okay. I-Beam is the first thing I was thinking about, given that it's right there in the the ability for you to get the Outcast, and so that's a really useful pickup. I'm kind of wondering if we want Kurt Russell here at all, attacking the left and rightmost minions with the Outcasts. Maybe doesn't end up picking it up,
and he still doesn't clear.
He needs to attack, right? He needs to attack first. It's dicey. Tincho's like running out of time. His rope's half burned. Knows that his Noble Sacrifice, was kind of hoping for it to be avenged. I don't know. It's over. Tincho shaking the head. He's like, I'm totally dead. Can't really stop this. And the Galloping Savior does not mean that he can even full clear, even if his attack was able to be successful there. So that's going to be game 3. No Hands, the Paladin gets the win. Another quick victory for the Paladin deck, and No Hands is able to get on the board.
He just died. It almost felt like Tincho didn't do anything that game. He got killed by the Resco Dragon Tamer that was played on 2. And he killed like nothing else. He attacked into a Noble Sacrifice and then like drew 2 cards. That is a tough deck though, because that deck has some reach, especially No Hands version, which has Alexstrasza the Lifebinder, so even if you like make it to that later stage of the game, if you're using too many combo pieces, you're just gonna get bursted for 8 on 9 mana. One thing it doesn't have is the Hammer of the Naru, which is one of the more threatening cards because it 9 damage over 3 turns and summons a 6/6. But that was just rough for Tincho. Just couldn't really get anything rolling, and that's a tough puzzle to solve. Secret Paladin, as Secret Paladin often is.
Very much so, and the classic build the board pressure and just kill your opponent very quickly before they get a chance to really get established is the method, right? People say like, how do you deal with this deck? So fun and interactive. It's like, well, you're supposed to interact with their face as much as you can for the first 5-6 turns of the game, and then put them in awkward positions, right? Like if Tincho had a little bit more breathing room, his hand was very powerful if you left him to his own devices. A lot of card draw, a lot of ways to sustain himself. Just not enough really mana and time to really put that together. So well done by NoHandsGamer as we move on to game number 4. Now, as we get closer to finding out whether or not Token Druid can ever win a game on broadcast that isn't the mirror, we do have to kind of wonder if No Hands wants to find an opportunity to play it, because there is one dynamic that I always am curious in this situation specifically, TJ, is whether or not you can slant yourself for the coin. And whether or not that benefits more the Weapon Rogue or the Token Druid. And it's a little bit hard to say because I really like it in both of the decks a lot of times, just to be able to try and punish my opponent as fast as I can. Because having the coin for Rogue, obviously great. Having the coin for the Gibberling, super good. Looks like No Hand's going to immediately queue up the Weapon Rogue. It is the better deck against the Demon Hunter though, so we're going to go into that for game number 4.
Yeah, I think both the decks that No Hands has remaining are good against the Otk Demon Hunter. Token Druid is, if you can stick a board at pretty much any step of the way, you need a lot to remove it. You need Immolation Aura plus some. Double Immolation Aura combined with Moargs, and you need it right on time. Weapon Rogue, I mean, good luck. If you don't have a news in your deck, you're going to be hurting. However, Tincho does have a news in his deck, but it's only 1. And if I'm No Hands, I don't care about the use. I may think about it slightly, but most of the time, I'm just, unless he hard keeps multiple cards in his mulligan, I'm just going to start smacking him, right? So this could be an interesting dynamic, but it's also kind of, for lack of a better word, dumb that the matchup is so dependent on Tincho just drawing one card.
It does feel like that, but a lot of times that's what you're trying to do as combo decks, right? Because you're so good at drawing cards, TJ. It feels like those 1 or 2 tech cards that you're really looking to anchor yourself with. You can draw it a pretty decent amount of time as long as you're aggressive with your mulligans, understanding what you can and can't keep, and also what you're playing to or playing towards. Speaking of playing towards, I mean, No Hands already has the weapon set up. The matchup shows what, like a 75-25 slant towards the weapon rogue, or 60-40, somewhere around there, like between that range. And it's just getting a lot tougher when No Hands has a start like this, and Tincho does not really have the card draw that he was really hoping to utilize with this momentary breathing room.
Yep. Gonna be tough. No Hands gets a second weapon, so even if Ooze does come out, unless Tincho has a critical massive healing, which, to be fair, he does. He's got double Moarg, double I-Beam, Fell Screen Blast in his hand. His hand says, please deal damage to me, so then I can heal it back up. I think he's looking for specifically Silverleaf poison here.
Okay.
That's actually tough. I might have even taken the Swindle. Sinister Strike, just use it because it gets it out of your deck, so you don't draw. And Tincho's like, please, Ooze. Ooze one time. 21 cards left. I'll drag you one.
He still has time. And the issue, though, is, at one point, it won't matter if he has to Ooze, because No Hands would have a second weapon set up.
Yeah.
You go ahead and swing.
How all in he goes here with this weapon. Oh!
Wow. Cutting
Juice
off the top.
Silverleaf! Oh!
Whoa. More card draw. I mean, No Hands has the damage to kill Tincho just right in his hand right now. Oh my god.
He just played. Cloak of Shadows. It's a pretty useless card in this matchup because the combo can be done regardless of whether or not you can attack face in most situations.
Right. Just making the plays for Tincho a little trickier. But he does find the Skull of Gul'dan. Fist pump. Did he find the Swamp Ooze? He did.
I will find
additional card draw. Everything is coming together. Eyes wide open. Tincho channeling his inner Earthen Ring Far Sphere. No Hands set back to ground zero, and now has to figure out a way to piece together 20 damage with these sharpening swords. The good news is that he still actually has a pretty good amount of damage in hand. But boy, was that a huge pickup here from Tincho. The one card that you were talking about, TJ, we were alluding to it. How crucial was that draw?
I mean, I said that I feel like the entire matchup depends on whether or not No Hand or Tincho can draw the Ooze, because this rogue deck does have a finite amount of damage, right? It can feel infinite at times because you have this giant Swinetoe Shank, but eventually you will find Ooze. You don't have to combo the weapon rogue. You just have to run them out of damage and space out your healing. And Tincho has plenty of healing to be able to do that, right? The only thing he has to do is time the healing.
You're right, and time is
not that
what he
difficult.
bought himself. It's not that difficult, but you know what? You could use some easy layups when playing the Otk Demon Hunter. Quite frankly, the deck is hard enough by itself. Having some easy plays here and there is a breath. It's a sigh of relief for a lot of players like me. Maybe not necessarily for esteemed, highly intellectual players and colleagues like yourself, TJ. Sophisticated weapon rogue aficionados such as Thomas James Sanders.
I'm definitely not a Otk Demon Hunter aficionado. I've learned it just by watching it over the years.
And watching, you know, quite frankly, watching a lot of people mess up with it. It's a very easy deck to mess up, and it's not a slight onto other people. Interesting pickup, by the way. Hold on 1 second. This Nitro Boost Poison. I was thinking about the merits of prep and what No Hands wants to do. But the Nitro Boost Poison is not corrupted because the way the sequence works is that it comes to your hand after the minion already has played, so you don't immediately corrupt. And so No Hands goes ahead, passes it over to Tincho, leaving up a Moarg. It's always a scary moment, but you know, it's not a mistake. He has to hold on to the fact that he's in a bad position because Tincho drew 20 cards in his deck so far, finds the Ilgnoth, but he did see all the discounted cards from Skull Gul'dan, right? So he knows that there's still a limited amount of incredible range of burst that Tincho can have. When your opponent starts discounting his hand, 3 of his cards for 9 mana total maximum, it starts to get really intense with what you start to account for, the range of possibility from your opponent.
Yeah. Honestly, No Hands is just dead next turn if he doesn't clear these Moargs. He's at 16. It's not even going to take that much. Just Il'gynoth and then a Fellscream Blast is already just 12, plus the 2 attacks. So he's got lethal represented on board with just Il'gynoth Fellscream Blast. I mean, that's not even considering the Talented Arcanist that's going to come in and be able to deal 30+ damage.
Yeah. Where's a leeching poison when you need it? You get the lifesteal on the weapon. I mean, that was what made the Kingsbane deck quite imbalanced when it was really powerful in the metagame. I guess it was in Standard, it wasn't super prominent, but in Wild, there was this period of time where Kingsbane, I think, was absolutely egregiously overpowered. And now No Hands probably in that same boat where he's wondering, is there any possible way for me to bail out myself in this situation that looks really bad? The answer is that it kind of requires Tincho to whiff here.
Yeah. I mean, if No Hands doesn't kill second Moarg, he's dead also. Okay, he killed second Moarg.
He knows, you know, like the way that Tincho's setting up, playing the second Moarg, it's like, whoa, hold on. Don't get a little bit too comfortable here. You're just like, think that one Moarg survives, you can play the second one on board and I just leave it up. Let's not get too wild. 21 cards drawn. Tincho looking for an opportunity to close it out. Waiting for player to reconnect. Looks like we're good to go. Let's count TJ. Moarg plus the Il'gynoth is 6 mana, and then you could play the Fellscream Blast and the
I-Beam, which is actually not that much damage. It's only 10 damage.
Not that much.
Mm-hmm. There's a way.
Next turn, though, he could play Il'gynoth, Moarg, Talented Arcanist, and Fellscream Blast, which is plus 3 damage on Fellscream Blast, doubled up, so 8 damage on, or 6 damage each minute, which is 18. So it has damage from hand next turn, or lethal from hand next turn, without anything. I mean, Tincho could honestly just pass the turn and win, right? I don't think there's a single thing that No Hands could do.
Right. And now there's inevitability because of the fact that Tincho's drawn so many cards in the deck that I think No Hands understands perfectly what's going to happen. That's a philosophy.
I think he is having connection issues, potentially.
Oh, okay, yeah.
That's why his face is like that. That's what I would imagine.
Yes, it looks like that might be the case. All right, so we're trying to figure out this connectivity issue. In the meantime, though, there's not much No Hands can do to even disrupt it, right? Because Tincho's at full life. He's not going to die next turn because Weapon Rogue does need a few turns to swing consecutively. And then you're looking at the hand of Tincho, and it's like it would just take a complete, disastrous series of events for him to not be able to get that lethal. So it almost looks secured, guaranteed. It's very close to 100%. that he wins from that spot. I'm just only saying that because I don't know exactly if there's a combination of cards from NoHands' side that he can use to bring it back. Looks like he has drawn his card, his prize plunderer. That is certainly not it, and I think that's it. The series should be over as long as Tincho does not mess up his combo.
Even if he messes up his combo, he probably still wins. Like, even if he just completely flubs it and kills his minions and only deals like 2 damage, he probably just has enough in minion power just to get there. Maybe not, but it is 18 damage, I counted, from last turn. It's just Talented Arcanist, Moarg, Il'gynoth, then Fellscream Blast, something in the middle.
Yes, absolutely. And there you go. Tincho with a finals appearance. Otk Demon Hunter able to get the job done. You can see the happiness, a little bit of swag, and perhaps a wave goodbye to NoHands. Very similar to the way NoHands likes to exit his opponents after a win. A great week 2 performance for NoHands after able to do a nice week 1 performance as well. But it does not look like we get either regions from Europe or America's back-to-back champions, TJ. And, you know, it started off really fast, but the Otk Demon Hunter slowed things down just a little bit, almost a little bit too slow, to the point where Tincho's internet connection had trouble staying up with us. But we're glad that everything ended up being able to finish out, because if Tincho, for some reason, disconnected and there was some ruling that had to be, you know, by the book, but obviously felt bad, it would have been a really awkward scenario, to say the least.
Yes, it would have. But yeah, you know, it's a great couple-week performance for NoHands. I think he didn't have the ultimate confidence in his lineup going into this week. You know, calling his win in the deciding